Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the Buffett and Beyond Research Stock of the Week, and we are going over Uber. Yeah, ride-sharing Uber, and this is August 2nd, 2025. And folks, this stock doubled the S&P 500 over the past 1 year and over the past 5 years. In between, it's had its ups and downs, but right now we're doubling the S&P 500 with this stock. And remember, folks, if you want to live on this beach like Jimmy Buffett once did, you've got to learn how to invest even better than Warren Buffett does now. And let's go over Uber Technologies, because there's some things in here that you might want to know. Well, first of all, we know what Uber does, but Uber Technology owns and operates a proprietary software platform, that links ride sharing. Folks, that's very, very important. Ride sharing and meal providers with individuals who seek these services. And the platform can be accessed through any mobile device. Now, the whole problem with Uber was, in the beginning, it was called Uber Taxi, and it got into all kinds of troubles because each city and state and local authorities had authority over the taxi ride system, and they sold medallions in cities like New York and Chicago. And folks, it was under control of the government, if you think about it, because how do you get to be a taxi driver? You have to buy one of those medallions or rent it, and that was the key. So there was a whole monopoly on the taxi business. But Uber, originally called Uber Taxi, changed its name to Uber Ride Sharing, and therefore it didn't fall under the taxi ride rules and regulations. And that's how they got around it, because in the beginning nobody wanted to invest in Uber because they knew they would have trouble with all the taxi drivers and all the taxi organizations throughout the entire world. And folks, they're all over the place, believe me. Now, back here, partnerships with a number of major grocery stores across the country. Think about this, including King Cullen and Big Y. These additions strengthen Uber Eats' position, get this, Uber Eats, so they deliver your meals to you now, as a leading provider of grocery delivery. And Ghost Kitchen, so the person who started Uber, or co-founder of Uber, Travis Kalanick, now invests in ghost kitchens. And ghost kitchens are where they prepare the meals for a lot of these deliveries. So you call a restaurant and you think you're getting the meal from that particular restaurant, but it might be from one of the ghost kitchens, because a ghost kitchen can be operated much more efficiently than can a restaurant kitchen. So if all of a sudden one of the restaurants that you think you're calling, or that you are calling that restaurant, but that order, instead of going to their kitchen, because maybe there's a rush on with people coming in the front end of the restaurant, and so now the kitchen gets backed up. But if the kitchen or this restaurant has a ghost kitchen, then those kitchens can be geared strictly for the call-in orders, and then guess what? Yeah, an Uber driver delivers that meal right to your doorstep, so you could have a hot meal and you don't have to go to the restaurant in order to do it. And then finally, the company has also, and this is the most important thing to me, because I look at that car in my garage and it sits there 99% of the time. And being a former engineer, I look at that and say, what a waste of technology, what a waste of steel and metal and plastics and wiring, because that car just sits there. So here we are with Uber, and the company has also been forming partnerships with the autonomous vehicle providers in select cities around the world. In other words, I keep telling my wife, I can't wait where I don't need a car anymore. I can push the button on my phone and a driverless taxi, if you want to call it, because it's not sharing a ride anymore. So my own private car, well, not my private car, but a car comes to me with nobody in it. I get in and I go where I want to go. That's the end of the story. I cannot wait for the autonomous vehicles to be out there and coming to my doorstep. They're out there, folks. They're in a lot of cities right now, but they are still looking at the safety features, et cetera, just what you would think about a car that has no driver. I know, scary at first, but that's what will be the key to Uber as long as they do form those partnerships with the autonomous vehicle providers out there. And look at Google. Google has Waymo and autonomous vehicle. You don't have to be a car manufacturer in order to have autonomous driven cars. Okay, so let's look at the numbers on Uber. Now, these are 4-year averages because don't forget, this is a pretty new company. Or I shouldn't say it's a new company, but it's been around more than 10 years now, but just started making money about 4 or 5 years ago. So we're going to look at these, and then we're going to look at all of this in depth. But we're comparing to the average stock out there. The average stock out there is in blue and Uber is in green. So the clean surplus return on equity, which is our favorite measure of the efficiency operation or the operational efficiency of a company compared to the average stock. So the clean surplus return on equity, in other words, how much have the investors put into the company and what are they getting a return on that? So for Uber, the ROE, the clean surplus return on equity, is almost 3 times that of the average stock at 30.1% versus the average stock of 13.5%. Now, net income is a little bit distorted here because I'll show you in the next slide, because it was coming from a negative number going into a positive number. But still, the 4-year average of net income is much higher than the average stock, and revenue, which is a much better indicator, is about 4 times that of the average stock. So that's very, very nice because you need that revenue to continue to grow in order to bring that money to the bottom line, which is over here. So yeah, revenue is very, very important. And then the clean surplus ROE, which we talked about already, measures the efficiency of the company able to take that revenue and bring it to the bottom line as net income, or better known as earnings. Net income is the clean surplus earnings. They're cleaner earnings and more consistent. So let's go to the little bit more in-depth numbers, and we can come over here and we can see that right up until 2022, this company was losing money. And of course, using Uber during COVID, which started, 2020 and lasted for about 3 years, a lot of companies look like this, lost money in here. And now all of a sudden Uber has started to make money. And these numbers right here, folks, I went over Uber in the daily letter just several months ago, and the 2025 number that was projected at that time was $2.20, and now it's been raised to $2.90. And for 2026, next year, it had been $2.80, and now it's up almost a whole dollar to $3.60. So you can see where it's getting that nice high clean surplus return on equity. And that's why here we have a 4-year average of 30%, because we wanted to start when the company started making money, is the money they are making going up. And that's what we're looking at right here. Retention rate, that means they're taking 100% of what they make and they're putting it back into the company in order to grow. How do we know they're using that money efficiently? By the clean surplus return on equity. Remember, to get in, the average stock has a 13% clean surplus return on equity. To get into our growth portfolio, we want to see 20%. And boy, it looks like Uber is really knocking them dead right in here. Now, the net income growth, I mentioned that this number of 77% or so was a little out of whack, because down here you're going from the company losing money to all of a sudden gaining money. So this is kind of skewed a little bit when we think of the average net growth of a company. But still, look at 24, 25, and then 2026. These are all good numbers, folks. And the revenue growth averaging around 15.7% for 4 years, and that is twice as much as the average stock out there. And when you bring in the other revenue growths before, while the company was still losing money, then you get a much higher revenue growth average. But we just took the 4-year average so we could have the 4-year average of net income growth and compare it to revenue growth. So that's the story here. Years to pay debt. This is Buffett's rule. He says if a company takes all the money it's making, how many years will it take to pay down that debt? His rule of thumb is 5 years or less. Our rule of thumb is 3 years or less, and this company can pay off all its debt in 1.1 years. So call it 13 or 14 months. That means that if interest rates go up, it's not going to hurt this company very much at all, because not much of what it makes goes to pay off the interest on that debt. But let's see how it's done price-wise, because what does the market think of this stock? And when we look at the 1 year, and this is the price chart of Uber over the past 12 months. Black line is the S&P 500, and you can see this stock has kind of been all over the place, but all of a sudden the market has recognized it, and it's doing great with that food delivery service. And I can't wait for the autonomous cars to come out, because maybe taking a chance on Uber here might be something, because when those autonomous cars come out, there's a lot of people that I know around here that don't drive very much. In fact, between my wife and I, we drive a whole 3,000 miles a year. Yeah, so that car just sits in the garage gathering dust. And what should your garage be used for? Yes, it should be used for all your junk, not for a car sitting there doing nothing. Believe me. So I would be very happy without a car. I don't know what my other half is going to say about not having a car at all, but we hardly use it just to go shopping. But over the past year, all of a sudden this stock is starting to take off, almost at new highs, and starting to go back up again as I record this. Let's look at 5 years. Yeah. Now this is 2025, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, and you can see that after COVID, people just didn't want to get into a cab that somebody else had been sitting in anymore. So that's what we're looking at here. But then when that was over, and boy, it's the same with the semiconductors. And that was the same thing with some of the food chains, because people just did not want to go shopping. And if they did, it was once every 2 weeks or once a month or something. People were staying away from people. A lot of the restaurants look just like this. But since then, this company has been taken off over the past 3 years or so. And yeah, we kind of like Uber, and maybe taking a chance on Uber, which is making money now and making more money than projected just in the past couple of months. And so we're looking at that autonomous vehicle situation, which might change the whole driving system dramatically. So Uber was the first company to come around and say, look, the whole taxi system is a monopoly, and we're going to call our company ride sharing. They did. When they changed the name to ride sharing, they stopped getting sued all over the place, and therefore it worked out very, very well for them, and is continuing to work out. So folks, we had another good week this week with Microsoft and reporting and doing very, very well. So folks, you go out this weekend, you take it easy, take your mind off the market, because it'll open up again next week. So you be safe, be with your family, and folks, we'll see you right back here in a couple of days.